Hello, English 2 sophomores. This is Miss Bailey with, just as promised, a bit more explanation about conflicts, in particular when we're talking about literature. So this is a literary term, conflicts. So remember that what we talked about in class is a conflict is a struggle between two opposing forces. Internal versus external, external versus internal conflict is about external conflict is about conflict that occurs outside of an individual, and internal conflict is about conflict that occurs inside an individual, whether they have two opposing values, or goals and desires, and those kind of compete for dominance inside an individual's mind or heart. So there are several types. So there are three main official types of external conflict, and those types are man versus man, man versus society, and man versus nature. Man versus man is a conflict with two characters in a story. Man versus society is where the individual stands up against society. Man versus nature is where basically it's a survival story where someone is struggling to survive. Man versus machine is something I've added to this sort of construct, mostly because the more technologically advanced we get, the more this fear pops up. And it's not a fear necessarily of machines. This is why Transformers doesn't count for this particular conflict, because Transformers are really about two different groups of people against each other, right? So man versus machine is really about a person's creation coming back to destroy them, to be their undoing. You can see this in King Lear, which is played by Shakespeare, where his own children are sort of his own undoing, along with his own problems, but that's the idea. Then you can also see this in the story of John Henry, the American folklore hero, and you can also see it in one other example, which we're going to read about this year, and I'll show you in just a minute. So here's some examples. Man versus man. This is, you can also think of this as group of men versus group of men. So you could think of this as, the American Civil War, and this movie is called Civil War, right? Because it's opposing sides. And we'll talk on Friday about what the story's really about. It's not just about Captain America versus Iron Man and they dislike each other and they want to destroy each other. It's not about that. It's actually about something deeper. Now here's a man versus society example, the Hunger Games. Now Katniss is sort of unwillingly drawn into this sort of rebellion, but she does stand up individually on her own against the society multiple times, and that sort of leads to a rebellion. And that's typically how the story tends to go, but oftentimes it can also end in the destruction of the individual too, like the society wins. But yeah. To Kill a Mockingbird, you could argue, is an example of that too, of Atticus Finch kind of against Jim Crow, segregationist policies, racist ideals in the To Kill a Mockingbird. Man versus nature. Unfortunately, Louisiana is really, and the Gulf Coast is really facing this right now with now only one hurricane facing them, but anytime that you're fighting to survive a natural occurrence or phenomenon. Man versus machine. This is our last example, and I mentioned to you we're going to read this story, but this is Frankenstein, or a typical depiction of Frankenstein, and this is the guy who creates him is named Frankenstein, and this is his monster, and it comes to destroy him. So it's that your creation destroying you, right? Now, conflict in humor is about deformities and absurdities. Anytime humor is always about an absurdity, a misunderstanding, an exaggerated, ridiculous sense of ridiculousness, right? That's what makes it humor, and not drama, right? It's when it becomes we focus on just the absurdity of the moment. Here's an example of just a pure absurd moment that the scene in this television show, which is Friends, if you're familiar with it, is really just where two characters kind of profess their love for each other. But it's done in such a ridiculous moment with one of the characters has a turkey on her head because she starts to apologize to him for something else. And she, then the other character kind of says, I love you. But it's done in such a deformity of absurdity of behaviors that it makes it funny. All right, so let's watch it.
Nice try.
Wait.
Look, Monica. This is not gonna work.
But this will work.
You are so great. I love you.
What?
Nothing. I said you're so great, and then I just stopped talking.
You said you love me. I can't believe this.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't.
You love me.
No, I don't. Stop it.
So we talk about deformity and absurdity. That's really what we're talking about, is that moment where she's got a turkey on her head as sort of to make herself, apologize. It's part of a long-running gag. But and normally in a dramatic movie, they're talking in the rain and they're professing each other's love for each other, and it's this beautiful thing. But in this case, it's not, because it's meant to be humorous. So in the story that you're going to read on Thursday, is a story about George, the truth about George. And George is this character who has to try and cure his stuttering. And he goes about to talk to 3 strangers to kind of cure himself from his shyness, which his doctor says is the cause of his stuttering. So, and the 3 strangers that he meets with create there's conflict with them because they have opposing purposes. And while it's conflict, it's still humorous. And so what I'd like you to do is identify kind of what is the man attempting to do for the first interaction, and then how is this in conflict with George's objective. Then man on the platform with the striped clothes, what is this character attempting to do? So what's his purpose? And then how is it in conflict with George's objective? Which is, it's humorous. And then his final person is a woman that he meets on the train. And then you have to say kind of, again, how is it in conflict with George's objective? So this is conflict, but it's absurd conflict. And so that's what makes it humorous. So enjoy. Hopefully that you have a good time with it. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email me, guys. Okay? Bye.